Yeah. How y'all doing? So, if you're wondering what's going on and the title of this one, so I've got this like stack of books here. I don't know if you can see them. Right, there's about on this table. There's about 40 books. Right, and I picked these out because I'm making a long form video about all these books, right? And I've got to get through every one. And the title of this live stream is You Only Need One Lesson from Every Book. And what it's about is you only really need to, for a book to be worth reading, you have to get something out of it. And I always think that every book I read, as long as I get one solid lesson out of it that I can take forward in life, then it's worth reading. Now, there's been some books. There's some people think, fucking hell, if I start a book, like there's a thought process that if you start a book, you can't quit. You should never quit reading a book. Now the issue with that is there's some books that I've read that I've just got very little from. So yeah, it's hard. Sometimes you have to quit reading a book, and that just might be, you know what, I've had enough of this one. There's been a couple of books like if you go to my reading list on my website, there's probably a link down below actually in the description, andyholt.co.uk, and then go to resources reading list. Right down at the bottom I mentioned a couple of books that I didn't really get on with all that well, and one of them was Dale Carnegie's How to Make Friends and Influence People. I just thought it was shy. I couldn't get on with it, and I know it's like a massively famous book and people are like really into it, but for me I just thought it was shy. I just could not get into it at all. And another one which I was really surprised about, I've probably got it down here somewhere, Ernest Becker's. It's probably in this stack somewhere. Ernest Becker's The Denial of Death, which I've had a rethink on that one. That there's plenty of lessons in there that I thought was really good. So yeah, sometimes if you find a book and you're not learning anything from it, then you've got to put it down because life's a bit too short, But yeah, like I said, the title of today's live is You Only Need One Lesson from Every Book, and that is to make it worth reading. So yeah, I'm going to be all these, like I've got a massive stack here. I've got like loads, 3 stacks here, and every one of these, I've got loads of books, but I'm going to do a video. I've got them all sort of wrote down here. I've picked 40 books from my reading list, and I've wrote a little lesson down for each one. And you know what I mean? This is what it is. So I think a book's worth reading if you get at least one lesson from it. Some books, there are many lessons. There are so many lessons. But as long as you get that one lesson out of a book, and obviously you don't just want to be, like I say, you don't want to. You want to be. You know the difference between a theologian and a practitioner. So you don't just want to be a full-time theologian, like reading content, listening to content, and just fucking consuming it. You've got to put this into practice. So that lesson that you get from that book, if you're able to sort of internalize it and transform it and put it into your daily life, and it can benefit you for the rest of your life, then it's definitely worth reading. Let's pick out a few here. I tell you, I've got a good one here, right? 48 Laws of Power, Robert Greene, belting book. this one, I'm pretty sure I have gone for the best, my favourite law in here. I think it's law 32. Let me find out. No, it's not 32. Which one is it? Oh, 33. Discover each man's thumbscrew. Right, this is brilliant. I've talked about this in other videos. Everyone has a weakness, a gap in the castle wall. Your weakness is usually an insecurity. That weakness is usually an insecurity, an uncontrollable emotion of the mind. It can also be a small secret pleasure. Either way, when found, it is a thumbscrew you can turn to your advantage. So think about that. Law 33, discover each man's thumbscrew. Even if you got that one lesson from this book, I mean, obviously there's 48 laws of power. I particularly like that one because I consider myself a bit of a Machiavel. And I think using that kind of strategy when you need to, find someone's thumbscrew and use it to get what you want is going to help you. Morals aside, of course. So that's the lesson I got from this. Low Cost High Life. I mean, this is a great book, by the way. This is Mark Homer. So Mark Homer is actually these two guys, right? This is another one. Rob Moore, Life Leverage, and Mark Homer. These are business partners. So I read this, and then Rob went, "Go and read Mark's book, Low Cost High Life." And one of the big lessons I got from this is something that I'm doing right now. So I read this early part of the year, and that lesson I'm actually implementing right now. And it's about cash preservation. So one thing I've been doing recently, which it's not so much about cash preservation, but I felt the need for it. I think I did a live the other week about me wanting to calm down on the lifestyle for a bit. I think it was like, quitting, because I've been basically living like a fucking baller for 3 years. And I needed to pack it in so I could focus on business. So cash preservation became a big part of that because I'm, pushing business and marketing and things like that. So I needed to save a bit of cash. So that's a good lesson on that. I was going to pick out some other books here, right? Well, I'll do that one in a minute because I've got models. But what about this? The 7 Spiritual Laws of Success, Deepak Chopra. This is a really good book. So there's plenty of lessons in here, but obviously the 7 Spiritual Laws of Success. The great thing about this, when you first look at this book, you think, oh God, is that a book for a man to read? But I'm into spirituality and meditation and mindfulness, so I can get on with this. But there's actually some really important things that you can learn from it, especially the karma part, paying your karmic debt. I did a video on it. So about karma and the karmic debt, the idea being is that the universe has got this kind of perfect accounting system where it will not let a debt go unpaid. So if you think about karma, right, the universe has this sort of accounting system where if you do something, that karma needs to be paid at some point, whether it's now, in the future. And it basically, karma is, it's almost like, what you give, you receive. It's almost like what you put out, you get back. So whatever you do, you can develop good karma or bad karma, neutral karma. But for every action, there's an opposite reaction. You know, it's a bit like EMC squared, right? Same thing, karma. So that's the big lesson I got from this book, that your karmic debt will eventually have to be paid. So beware. Another, obviously, a great book here. I've fucking done loads on this. Obviously, I've got whole videos. I think my most popular video is my review of Mark Manson's models. This is a fabulous book. Obviously, you should watch my Mark Manson models review video, right? Because it's like I say, it's my most popular video. So I don't need to talk too much about it. But the main thing I learned from this is a lot of repetition in other books. Like it's basically Mode 1, which is Alan Roger Curry. This one, Mark Manson's models, is basically a copy of Mode 1 for a mainstream audience. This one's like pure dark red pill stuff, so this one's brutal. But what I got from Mark Manson's models, which is quite distinct from this, because this is just about brutal dating, red pill dating. It's brilliant, by the way, Mode 1. This one, I took a lot of general psychology, which I could then apply in the business world as well as dating world. So that was really good. It is a really good book. Getting the love that you want, right? Another one, not really a man book again, but this has got some absolutely fabulous psychology in it. I did I've done some good coverage on this book, some videos. I did one when I was out in Lake Tenno, actually, above Lake Garda. I did one called Integrate Your Shadow or You'll End Up Dating It. So this one's a good one because this is about the imago match. So it touches on what do we call it? Attachment styles, right? So I don't want to go into attachment styles too much. I think we've got attached here somewhere as well. But attachment styles is if you tend to date the missing part of you. So if you're highly anxious, you'll date someone who's avoidant, right? And it's similar to, I might even have it here, the human magnet syndrome. That's another book that talks about that. But the key lesson in this book is you date the missing part of you. That's your shadow, basically. So if you're like highly anxious, you'll date someone who's avoidant because that's your shadow self, the missing part of you. And if you're avoidant, you'll date someone the opposite, anxious. And the idea being is you should use the imago therapy in here. You should use each other to heal and come closer to the middle. So the anxious person practices restraint, maybe, which is more of an avoidant quality, like not reaching out too much, having some restraint, that kind of thing. And the avoidant person practices being more loving and attentive and that kind of thing. And in doing in practicing your missing part, the missing part of you, the shadow, which is the uncomfortable part, the thing that you don't want to do, you actually repair yourself. So both partners come closer to the middle. That's a lesson in that. Here's a good one. 4-Hour Work Week. There's a new copy of this because I read this absolutely donkeys ago. Bloody hell. I bet it was 16, 17 years ago, maybe even longer when I read this. So I bought a new copy. Smells new, just for this video. Anyway, the one, like if I read this sort of 17 years ago, I still use, I still use a lesson I got from this book today. So this was probably one of the, if not the first serious book on self-development that I read. And the lesson that I got from it is a low information diet from Tim Ferriss, and this is all about reducing your focus during the day on what you spend time on. And he talks about things like batching emails. So batching emails is more, if you think about it, like the low information diet, right, is about kind of cutting out things that are not going to help you, and really narrowing your focus down to what matters. So when he talks about batching emails, he says leave them till 1 p.m. in the afternoon. So when you get into work in the morning, first thing you do is launch a computer and open up your emails. You just get fucking swamped with your inbox, right? And the idea being is if you leave them until 1 p.m, then what actually happens is most of those emails, because there's lots of people get copied in, they sort themselves out unless they're urgent. And then if you leave them all till 1 p.m, you can do them all in 1 hour or in half an hour or whatever. You batch them together and deal with them all in one go. The alternate is as soon as you get in the morning into 8, 9 o'clock, whatever, you open up your emails, you're dealing with initial emails for like 20 minutes. And then every hour you keep checking, there's another bloody email. So it zaps 20 minutes out of every hour. So it's not productive. So yeah, great lesson. Let's have a look here. I'm not going to do that one. Oh yeah, attached, obviously. Attachment styles, see who you are. So it's a really important book on attachment styles. Here we go. The Gap in the Gain. Dan Sullivan. This is a good book, actually. I did a review on this one. So the lesson here in this one is measure backwards. The idea is you're measuring backwards, you're measuring progress. You're not measuring forwards, because that would be measuring what you don't have. That's been what Dan calls being in the gap, which is being in the want, in the need. So you don't measure forwards, you measure backwards. And it's like, this is really good, because it's like what I talk about when I talk about goals being on the horizon, right? So a goal should always be on the horizon, because it's a direction that you're aiming at, right? But if you're constantly looking at what you don't have, I want that thing, I want that car or whatever, you're in the gap there, and you're in the want, and it's kind of like bad energy, no matter which way you look at it. So the whole idea, the gap in the gain, you're measuring backwards, then you're measuring the gain, you're measuring progress. So just on the goal, stick it on the horizon, aim at it, use it as a bit like what, have I got psycho-cybernetics here? Yeah, it's down there, psycho-cybernetics, Maxwell Maltz. You're aiming at your goal like a target, and then you're measuring backwards, you're measuring progress. So you're measuring where you was last week and where you are today. And the idea is it's about the journey. So, which leads us on to, obviously, one of the best books ever written, Psycho-Cybernetics. So there are so many lessons in this, but the main lesson is, right, it's that, the main lesson I got from this is about that direction. Your goal is a direction, and it should always be on the horizon, and you've got to keep moving the goalpost back, right? But that's the power of visualization. Here's a good book. Let's have a look at this one. Chris Camwell, Atomic Attraction. This is packed with lessons, right? But it's extremely actionable, right? So if you're new to self-improvement and you're going down sort of dating rabbit holes, this is the book for you. When you get a bit more advanced, obviously, you want to be reading things like Models and obviously Mod 1, Alan Roger Curry. But when you're first starting out, Atomic Attraction is really good because it just gives you absolute nuggets that you can implement right now. Even like really simple things, right? Like, what are the most attractive colours to wear as a man? Right? It fucking crazy bits of knowledge like that, and it's all based on science and knowledge, and how you should dress and what you should do and how you should act, and just simple things like this is quite common now in lots of dating books, about when you're in a bar and you've got a pint, you shouldn't hold it at it's a really simple one, like you shouldn't hold it at your chest like this. You should hold it down by your side because you want to open your chest because it's like masculine and strong. Whereas if you've got your arms across your chest or you've got some kind of closed body language, it's like you're guarding yourself. Whereas if you just, so if you're holding your pint there, it's like you're guarding yourself. Whereas it should just be by your side. Little simple bits of. It's a bit like learning fucking pickup lines, really. But this is all about behaviours and things. So it's a great book. Anyway, here's a good one. This is a bit of a weird one. How to Sell Anything to Anybody. Joe Girard. He's apparently officially the world's greatest salesman according to the Guinness Book of Records. Lesson in this one was the power of smells to make a sale. So he was a car salesman, Joe Girard, and he knew that, when you get in a new car smell, he knew all he had to do. He didn't have to do much. All he had to do was get the person to sit in the car and smell it. And that were it. He hardly had to say anything. Just let them sit in the car and get that new car smell. That was enough to drive the emotions of the person to make a sale. So, I did this recently with some of my products. Bought this special fragrance, new book smell. To sell the journals, because when people open it, that smell, it's like, yeah. So that's a great lesson there. All right, go on then. We'll do this one. Superhuman, Dave Asprey. Mixed reviews on this one because people think he's a bit of a charlatan. But to be honest, I loved this book. I thought, yeah, it's a bit wacky. It's about biohacking. And it got a lot of hype. But I loved... like, end of every section, you get this kind of like crib sheet, and to be honest, you don't even have to read it. If you just took that crib sheet and just followed it at the end of every chapter, and took sort of as much of it as you can, because some of it's crazy. Like, I did a video on this. This guy spent 180 grand having his stem cells done. He had like half a pint of bone marrow dragged out of his hip and fucking injected everywhere. So it's crazy. But the lesson that I got from this, which I implement today, right? This is how important this is. Think about lessons from books. You only need one lesson from every book to make it worth it. The biggest lesson I got from this is right at the start of it. Talks about the 4 biggest killers, right? All being based on body inflammation, right? And I'd already got into like low carb diets. I've got here now Tim Ferriss's 4-hour body. I've got this one, ultra processed people, Chris Van Tolken, really good. I've got where is it? It might be here somewhere. Thomas DeLauer, who I kind of follow for diet. I'd already got big into keto and low carb. Now, you don't need to be strict keto, but the lesson that I got from this about body inflammation being the root of all the big killers, the four biggest killers in the Western world, whether that's heart disease, diabetes, Alzheimer's, I'm missing one here, and heart disease, diabetes, Alzheimer's, cancer, right? They're all based on inflammation. What causes inflammation? It's a issue with your, a lot of the time it's an issue with your blood sugars. Think about diabetes type 2. It's about eating the wrong foods and spiking in your insulin. You know, it messing around with your insulin sensitivity, which comes from eating shit, crap, white carbs, high sugars, things like that. So this is why on my, if you go to my website, andyholt.co.uk, go to resources. Obviously, I've got the reading list with all these books on there, but I've also got a diet plan. And that, if you read that, I explain why I go generally low carb, right? And you can have carbs, but you want to eat whole foods, not processed shit, because it just spikes your inflammation, spikes your your insulin, right? Messes around with your insulin sensitivity, which eventually will raise your body inflammation. And all the big killers are based on body inflammation. So I work very hard when I get a blood test to lower my inflammation as low as possible. And even though Dave Asprey's got a lot of critics now, that part of this book is fucking well worth reading, because it really lays it out right at the start, the four biggest killers in the don't die section, you know. So that alone is why it's worth it. And the benefits I've got from that since reading this, I know I'm labouring this point, but it's so important for your health. A lot of people see this book as a joke, but that part of it is super serious. I took that on board straight away. Started doing blood tests. I got my inflammation so low, and one of the benefits of having low inflammation, obviously, is you're less likely to get one of those terminal diseases. But the other thing is, you're recovering. I've just got back from the gym now. Literally, that's why I've got dressed like this. I've just been. You recover so quickly. Like, your recovery is amazing when you have low body inflammation. And if you've got high body inflammation, you feel fucking chronic, you know what I mean? You feel terrible. You just feel shite. So that is the big lesson. Right, where are we going with this? Right, obviously, many lessons here. Order Out of Chaos, Scott Walker. This is a great book. I'll tell you why it's a great book, because this guy, Scott Walker, was my business coach for 3 years, so I know him personally. He's now a very famous author, bestseller. He's got new books coming out. He's got a new one out now, Eye the Storm. I've just ordered it. The big lessons that I got from this book were active listening. So now I had coaching with Scott for 3 years, so he taught me this like in person, you know, like in our sessions. So when I read this book, it was a really good reference, because I like to obviously make notes and use books as reference. But understanding active listening, I owe a lot to Scott. I remember I was in, used him, coached him for 3 years, and I had a few years ago, I had a really critical business meeting that I had to negotiate and get us through a particular tough meeting so that we could get through on a big sale. And it was a very big sale. It's impacted me still today. You know, it was one of them moments that it could have gone either way. And I explained it, and he told me how to handle it. And it was using the active listening techniques, which are quite important. You know what I mean? It's all about reading the room and allowing people to. I was in this meeting with people getting really angry, like even swearing at me in this meeting. They were that irate, and what I had to figure out was what was this person's real needs. You know, what were making them like that. And once I got to the bottom of it through active listening, like I was just sort of like encouraging, like minimal encouragers is one of them, just to keep them moving and keep talking. You make them feel seen, heard, and understood. And only, you know, if you go into a meeting just being all guns blazing and defensive, you're not going to get that. So you have to get someone seen, heard, and understood. And once they feel seen, heard, and understood, that's when you can start to influence them. So this book is great for that negotiation psychology. Scott was obviously a kidnap for ransom negotiator, so he's like negotiating at the highest stakes, like people's lives, you know, for like, give us $1 million or we're, you know, doing this. It was that kind of stuff. So it's high stakes negotiation, and he mentors business leaders and like me. I'm a fucking business. No, I'm messing. No, he was my coach for 3 years. So great bloke. But I'll just read the subtitle here. Win every negotiation, thrive in adversity, become a world-class communicator. That's very true. You can even use it, the same techniques in here that you can use with your family, people like kids. And here's another one, right? Scott worked for Scotland Yard, the UK. Now there's another guy, which I've got a book. I've not got it here. Chris Voss has got a book called Never Split the Difference. You might have seen it. It's quite a famous book. Chris Voss teaches like emotional intelligence, and he's on like what's it called? Masterclass. Really famous book. Never Split the Difference. So Chris and Scott know each other. Scott is like the UK equivalent to Chris Voss. And one thing that I found as well is a lot of that stuff that they teach about negotiation in business gets regurgitated and changed by many coaches to fit into other niches, right? I've seen it being used not just for business, because obviously it came from a hostage negotiation, which is high stakes negotiation. It's like the highest stakes. People package it up. Scott and Chris use it for business, but other people also use it for. I've seen people use it for dealing with kids, like how to negotiate with a kid, with a wife or a husband, and I've also seen pickup coaches use it to teach people pickup, use the emotional intelligence. So, and this is why I like reading psychology, because you can reapply this, just like I said with in my Mark Manson Models book, the stuff I learned in here, which is supposed to be about dating, you can apply to the business world. And it's same with this, you know, this is a business book. You can apply it to your dating life too. So it's really good. Let's move on. Okay, this one. Let's have a look what we got here. Oh yeah, okay. Let's do this. Pete Forty, Mark Bubbs, really good book. This is an easy read book, a very, very simple book. It's almost like an executive summary of health and what happens to a lot of people when they reach 40 years old. and it talks about why. I think it mentions that there's it talks about guys particularly. There's a point in a guy's life. I think it's somewhere between the age of about 40 and 48, or it might be 42 and 48, which tends to be the toughest time in a lot of people's lives, guys. If you follow the herd on this, which a lot of people do, if you've followed the herd of life and you've done what society wants you to do and been a good little slave and got married, had kids, mortgage, 9 to 5 job, all the usual. You're plugged in, and you're a fucking good little slave taxpayer, and you're absolutely up to your eyeballs in debt. By the time those guys get to about 40-year-old, between 40 and 48 is supposed to be the most miserable fucking time in their life, because this is the time when the kids are really depending on them. They've got this career that's sort of under pressure. They've put on a shit ton of weight. They've lost energy. Maybe the marriage isn't going too well. A lot of divorces happen around that time when once the kids get to about 5 or 6, is when divorces happen, because they're less dependent on the parents. And by this time, the guy between the age of about 40 and 46 is probably at his most unhealthiest, unless you're a fucking animal like Messi, unless you're really keeping it in shape and everything. This is where you're eating shit, you're stressed out, you've got all the debt, marriage is falling apart, kids are marrying the shit out of you. So it's a real dark start to it, you know what I mean, when it starts talking about that being the most miserable part of a guy's life. But if you recognise the signs and just switch it up, you can literally transform yourself into. I've heard people call it. I've heard one guy on YouTube call it Life 2.0. Where you can version 2.0. You might have seen. But you want to get to version 3. No, version 2 is not good. Version 3 of yourself. So you got to recognise the signs and so this talks about health, of course. This guy's a doctor. It doesn't go as nerdy as things like what we've got. I've got Peter Attia's book here, right, Live, or like I say, the Superhuman, Dave Asprey, or have I got it over there? Oh yeah, Lifespan, Dave Sinclair. I think that's out of date now. Well, they all are. But it's not as serious as the biohacking stuff. It's like I'd read all that serious biohacking and things like, I've got one about fucking peptides and all sorts, right? And metabolic health, and I'd read all that stuff, and then I read this, and I quite, even though this is like a simplified version, I quite like reading books that way around. So if you go and read something really complicated and nerdy, and then you find a book that's like easy reading like this, I like, another lesson I like to get from books is, I think you need to hear the same lesson twice from different sources. And that's why I always say that in my reading list at the top of it, I say what you should always do is read wide, right? And then form your own philosophy from a wide range of sources. And what I got from this book, because I've read it after all the serious stuff, I got a nice little kind of, it was like wrapping it up into an exec summary, so it was really good. So yeah, when I say read wide, by the way, that's why, you got to be careful that you don't read one type of book. So when it comes to dating, right? Look, Mark Manson's models. Sorry, Order of Chaos. I did put that as kind of, you can use that for dating, but all right, there's that. It's not a dating book, but that's reading wide. Models, Mark Manson. Some people will find this, like the red pill community, will find this a bit wet, right? A bit weak, but it's not. And you got things like Atomic Attraction, which is like your starting book, and then you got the like hardcore red pill stuff, Mode 1, and then look at this, Getting the Love That You Want. Absolutely no red pillar would ever read that, would they? But the funny thing is, all of these books, right, all of them talk about the same thing, just through a different lens. So you get the same lesson from every one, and that's what reading wide. This is a brilliant book, by the way. Probably one of the best. I mean, I've got many. I've got loads over here. I've got like so many on that topic. Anyway, I'm not going to go into them now. Here's a good book. Office Politics. Talks about this quite a bit. Oliver James. So this is all about the dark triad. Psychopaths, narcissists and Machiavells. And, it's all about learning how to spot these people and play them at their own game. So I read this basically with the intention of becoming a better Machiavel. And I think I successfully achieved that. So many things in here that are kind of funny and, but you can read this any way you like. But yeah, learning the tips, how to spot people. This all, talking about the office environment, just reminds me of my time in corporate. Absolute weasels in there. Here is a really, really important book. Hang on, my battery's going, so I can't be too long. Here's a really important book, the Almanac of Naval Ravikant. This one, it's tiny, and it's like a collection of, look at how many notes I've scribbled in it, loads of them, right? Just pages of it, right? All these little notes, because this has probably got like every page. Look at this, every page has got multiple lessons on every page. I mean, I'm a massive Naval fan. So this is like a collection of all these tweets. Each one of these is one of his tweets, and sometimes he does one of these like, is it a tweet storm or whatever they call it? And then underneath he's got some like description of what's going on. And think of one, well, there's so many lessons in this. I'll just give you one. Learn to love to read. That was a great lesson. So what he said was, learn to love to read. First, which is what you do, is you read easy things for the love of it, get in the habit of reading. And then once you learn to love to read, you then can tackle the difficult books, the ones that you've been avoiding. But first you have to learn the skill of it. So that's a great lesson there. And I think I'm going to wrap this up. I mean, there's so many books. This is a great book, by the way. You've got to go and read this one. Thinking Fast and Slow. So much to this, but I've done so many videos that have been inspired by this. Look at all the bloody notes I've done. And it's such a good book. The lessons here, well, developing a trader's mindset is a good one. Understanding loss aversion. Done a few videos on loss aversion. Understanding, and I've also, when I did the videos on loss aversion, I did one on making decisions, and I found the same sort of correlating message from Tim Ferriss on his decision making. Look for an asymmetrical upside when you're going to make the decision, because loss aversion is an emotional issue, and apparently, what it says in here, usually people are so risk averse, they need the upside. In order to take the risk, they need the upside to be 1.5 to 2.5 times the downside. Whereas when I did my video on making decisions, I remember like getting that correlating message from Tim Ferriss where he said, look for an asymmetrical upside. And where, depending on your risk appetite and the value of the risk, so if it's just a tiny risk, you should look for any asymmetrical upside. It doesn't need to be 1.5 to 2.5 times the downside, just slightly, and then go for it, right? And don't let the outcome of that, let's say you make a decision and it's a bit of a risk, don't let the outcome of that sway the next time you make that decision. It should always be based on the odds, not based on what happened or your emotions. And that is about developing that trader's mindset. Anyway, I am going, like I say, I'm going to do a full video on all these books because there are a lot. And there's a lesson in every one of them. I mean, I could go on here. This is a great book, by the way, if you want easy reading. This one, Vagabonding. Rolf Potts. This is a great read. So, when I read, where is it now? Here we go. Right, 4-hour work week. Tim Ferriss. I read this, like I say, probably 17 years ago, maybe even longer. I can't remember the exact time. I remember where I was working. Tim Ferriss, when he went on his, the story of writing this book, which obviously made Tim Ferriss this very famous author, he had a business and it wasn't doing too well. And I think he was too much in the business, micromanaging every aspect of it, working 80, 100-hour week. Reminds me of what I was doing, 80 hours a week, 100 hours a week. And he was sucked inside it. And the idea of the 4-hour work week, it's like a metaphor. It's just about reducing what you do and focusing on only the important things. So, and when he went, so Tim Ferriss was working daft hours, let's say he was working 100 hours a week, burning himself into the ground because he was too much in the business, micromanaging every aspect of it. I'm just reading a book at the minute, by the way, called, well, it's in the other room actually. It's Traction, Gino Whitman, the entrepreneur's operating system. And that talks about letting go of the vine, which is what Tim Ferriss talks about in 4-hour work week, which is letting go of the small stuff and only focusing on the big stuff, which happens to be everything that I talk about when I talk about just doing 3 things a day. So when I say I only do 3 things a day, they might only take 20 minutes, half an hour each. I can literally work like 10 hours a week, 12 hours a week, say 3 hours a day, sometimes not even do that. And I achieve more now in a couple of hours a day than when I used to work 80 hours a week, like literally 3 or 4 times the output for working much less because I'm laser focused on things that matter. I'm not bothering about fucking emails and getting back to everyone that doesn't matter. That's what this book is about. Anyway, the reason why I mention it, why it's connected to vagabonding, which you wouldn't think they had anything to do with one another. When Tim Ferriss, when his head went with his business and he was working 80 hours, 100 hours a week, he went on a sabbatical, didn't he? Just took himself out of his business, left it to his staff, went travelling the world for like 18 months. He went on a vagabond. And he took 2 books with him. I can't remember because it's in 4-hour work week what the other book was, but one of them was Vagabonding, right? And this, Rolf Potts' Vagabonding, it's called An Uncommon Guide. It's such a good book. There's a lot of stuff in here that's probably not up to date now, because it talks about which countries are dangerous and stuff, and probably all that shifted about. But the idea is, he just he mentions that what you want to do is just take the bare essentials. Don't, like, if you're going to go backpacking, don't take that massive rucksack with a big rolled fucking mattress, you know, the massive 120 litre rucksack. He's talking like take the smallest little bag and then go on a one-way ticket with no intention of knowing when you're coming back. And the other one is, what he mentions is, what you're not going to try and do is move every. It's not like, oh, I've got to get to this city, tick it off my list. Got to get to that city, tick it off my list. What he's not saying is, don't try and just box tick. Go to a place and really experience a culture for like. Oh, right, okay. Sorry, I missed the comments. I'll address that in a second. Anyway, yeah, so he's saying, don't really try and experience the culture. So stay there for a month, 2 months, something like that before you move on. Really experience it. Anyway, it's a great book. And when I started to solo travel on my own, which is a scary thing, literally just jumping on a plane, getting somewhere, not speaking the language, new country, on your own, like literally solo travel, just, go somewhere without knowing anyone. When I started solo travel, I took this with me and read it on my first solo trip. I fucking loved it. I felt like Tim Ferriss. It was brilliant. Anyway, yeah, I've just seen this comment. Hey Andy, is there a comment down at the live chat? Hey Andy, are you reading the chat? What businesses were you involved with? So, what businesses were I involved with? You mean when I was in my working career? So I was a designer. So I was in. I first studied product design, like industrial design, and I did toys and furniture. Ended up doing furniture. Then got into architectural technology, interiors, construction. Then got into mainstream architecture, and then I started consulting in IT for construction. And then I created my business, which was a consultancy business, which is now a software business. So we make software for the industry, for engineering. So I've got that business, and I've got the other one, which is the publishing business now as well. Hey, Kevin, how you doing? Yeah, yeah. What you up to? You know the way I. Ah, right. So you travel solo, yeah, and get the chance to link up with friends. Yeah, exactly. So when I was saying about the vagabonding thing, I believe that solo travel is it's a unique experience. I get that it's like, it's not for everyone, because it can be quite nerve-wracking, and also, if you're a girl, I'm not sure about the safety of it. You'd have to really pick and choose. But for me, I'm a guy. I'm like not scared. Going traveling solo travel is one of them things. It really builds your character. So I recommend it if you have the opportunity to land somewhere. And then one thing that I have found from solo travel is I have met so many really interesting people on solo travel. And I've now got friends all around the world through this process. And sometimes we meet up now. You know, I've just met so many interesting people through doing solo travel. Even like a great one is just sat on a plane, you know, just taking a random seat, and then just you end up talking to someone. And it like I say, it really builds your character, and it's a good social exercise to get you to be more social. Especially like, you know, when you sat on a plane, and that's the easy bit because you sat next to someone, it's quite easy. But it's like a little warm up. Then when you land in a country, you're then forced to speak to people you don't know, and it's really good at building your character. And I've met some of the most fantastic people that way that I'm now friends with, and I really recommend it. Anything like that that broadens your social skills. That's why all of these books have got some kind of psychological bent to them, because I do believe in the art of developing your social skills and your communication skills, because that's like a universal life skill. Right, I'm gonna have to shoot because I've been to the gym and I stink a bit, and I'm just a bit sweaty, and I'm knackered. I've got to get a shower and get to bed. So thank you for listening. And by the way, go to my website, andyholt.co.uk. Go to resort. There's a link down below. Go to resources. Go to my reading list. All of these books are on my reading list, along with a little summary. All right. See you all next time.